Live and learn.
Okay, here we are, Hammer Factor. My name is John Grace, on the horn with John Weld, legend, Lewis Geltman, legend. Let's get right into it. Headline says, it's time to start drilling in the national parks. Lewis, what's going on? Where is this at? Talk to me.
Man, every moment's a thrill when you're living through the end of days. John Grace, as usual, has his finger on the pulse of all of these things. This bill got introduced last night, and I had an email from him first thing this morning being like, what's going on with this? So,
he's at the data center over there in Asheville.
Yeah.
You're just jealous we have the internet, Will.
We're working on it.
So I gave this thing a quick look. This is, do you guys know anything about the Congressional Review Act? We can really get into the weeds here briefly.
Lay it on us.
Let's get in the weeds.
So the way it works with agencies and rulemaking is like Congress writes a law, like I don't know, like the National Forest Management Act, and it says, all right, Forest Service, you have to create a forest management plan for every national forest every 15 years, like, and here are the things that have to be in it, and that's it. But then the Forest Service has to figure out how they're actually going to put that into effect. And the way they do that is through a rulemaking. So the Forest Service makes a rule that's like implements the law, basically, and it has to kind of, within reasonable boundaries, be in conformance with what the law says, but it, is much more specific in its scope. So when the agencies do these rulemakings, Congress, with this thing that was created in the 90s called the Congressional Review Act, can basically veto the rulemaking of the agencies within 60 days of the rule becoming final. And so that is something that's going to be kind of hot right now because the Obama administration finished all these rulemakings that took several years for a lot of them. A lot of things got wrapped up right at the end of the administration. So now the Republicans have Republican Congress, Republican in the White House, and they want to go back and undo all these rulemakings that got put into place by the Obama administration. Right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically these like, I don't know what you want to call it, these like repeal of regulations under the Congressional Review Act, like they can move through Congress with it has to be passed like a normal law, like it has to pass the House, it has to pass the Senate, it has to get signed by the president, but it moves through Congress with much more streamlined procedures. So I think there'd be like no opportunity to filibuster it in the Senate. I don't think it has to even move through committees necessarily in the House, but I have to look at the specifics of it, but it just moves much more rapidly. So this thing that you sent around, John, was from the, one of the national parks advocacy groups, and the bill is House Joint Res 46, and it has to do with the rules that govern like oil and gas development inside national parks. And the reason that that's even possible in the first place is that sometimes there's something called like a split estate where you can own, I'm sure Weld, you probably know a lot about this in Pennsylvania, where you own the surface rights to the land, but someone else owns the
mineral rights.
The mineral rights underneath.
Yeah.
And so there are places where somebody might have granted land to the National Park Service, but only the surface rights and not the development rights. So there are these like kind of limited places in national parks where somebody else other than, the public owns the mineral rights that are underneath the national park.
That's actually the case with Ohiopyle. I believe Ohiopyle State Park has, I don't think when they got that property, they did their due diligence to get the mineral rights. I think that's an issue.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. So I'm looking actually at the rulemaking that that these guys want to overturn, and it mentions some of the places that
Well,
this.
I have a list here of the 40 places, and I remember a couple weeks ago I was talking about the Big South Fork National Recreation Area. That's one of them. Gauley River. You guys have heard of that one. New River Gorge. You've heard of that one. Everglades National Park. Mammoth Cave National Park. Grand Teton National Park. Glen Canyon National Park. The list, it's pretty easy to find. You can do a simple search for it. So,
actually, see, I'm looking at the rulemaking, and it says 534 non-federal oil and gas operations in a total of 12 system units. So maybe that's just what's ongoing right now. Obed, Wild and Scenic, that's in your zone, right?
Yep. That's in my zone. And so basically, what happens is these places that they either are grandfathered in or they put these wells in, but the National Park Service had the opportunity to have some oversight, safety, environmental regulations. But now they're being stripped of that power, and that's being given to the state or someone locally. Is that what I'm getting?
No, I looked at it really quickly, but my understanding is that there were some 1978 regulations that kind of governed how these operations were, how the oversight worked for these oil and gas operations. And they wanted to replace them with more modern regulations, basically, and kind of, I would assume, stronger safeguards. And so I think that if this were overturned with the CRA, it would go back to the 1978 regulations. But again, I'm just looking at this now, like, really quickly, so I don't want to claim expertise I don't have on this. But it's certainly something we'll look into, we'll put something up on the OA blog, and I don't know, try and get a little more explanation of it. And there's a couple of other things that are kind of up for CRA review that are things that we've worked on a little bit more.
I mean, so what are we looking at for the next? I mean, we're getting an idea of how things are headed. I mean, what's the vision? I mean, Congress isn't saying we're going to make America a giant slag heap. I mean, that's obviously not their message. They're saying we want X. Like, what is their message? We just want.
I think the message is that they want economic development over, environmental protection, or that we've constrained the ability of businesses to make money too much, and we want to undo these regulations and kick more things to the private sector, or just no oversight at all, or, the hope that the states are going to do a good job of regulating these things on their own. But I think, to me, I see that as kind of disingenuous when you see all the places where the states do a good job of regulating, and, the Republicans are after that as well. Like, Pruitt and his confirmation hearings. I know, again, this is getting kind of in the weeds, but, like California, under the Clean Air Act, is able to enact more stringent clean air requirements for vehicles than the national standard. And Pruitt wouldn't even commit to allowing that waiver that allows them to enact more stringent standards to continue to exist. It's like California wants to have stronger clean air protections than the rest of the country, and the Republicans in Congress are like, we don't even want to let you guys do that. It's like, the idea that this is about states' rights or something, to me, seems pretty disingenuous. I think it's just really about empowering business over public health and over the environment.
Right. I mean, the country has had that kind of situation in the past. I mean, what's it going to look like in 4 years if left unconstrained? I mean, what are we going to see?
I mean,
you and I both. I think we talked about this before. You and I. You probably too young to remember this, but I remember the Potomac being not a very clean river at all. Like, it was a nasty place to paddle.
Yeah.
Up until the early 80s.
I mean, I guess I kind of take heart from that a little bit, in that, we did bring a lot of these places back from the brink, and we might have to do it again. It's I guess I hate to be as pessimistic as I honestly feel about it, but it's hard not to see things taking a big step backwards. But, I think, the way we're thinking about this stuff going forward is, I think kind of our roots as an organization in a lot of ways has been, the policy professionals at our member organizations, our executive director, me, writing kind of sort of like persuasive letters to Congress and sort of explaining these things in a technical way and kind of explaining the values of our community and trying to be really reasoned about, how we're thinking about public lands management. And it seems like going forward, there's just going to be, I think that needs to be a little bit smaller part of our approach. And what really is going to make the difference is going to be all of us as a community being, really effective advocates. And we want to help, everyone, like our listeners, to have the information they need to reach out to their Congress people regularly and let people know that there's, political will behind this stuff. It's not just about what's a good idea. It's like these guys, I think that what's going to make the difference moving forward is not like what's a great idea. It's what gets people fired up, like what are these guys in Congress hearing about every day from their constituents, and helping them understand that if they, proceed with things like making it easier to drill in national parks, that people are going to be pissed and that they're going to hear about it and it's going to be a big deal, like that's what's going to make the difference, not us being like, well, it's really important to, writing some persuasive letter about it or something. It's like what matters is that all of us show up consistently. And so I think we're really trying to do a better job of sharing those opportunities with our kind of broader community and trying to get everybody to mobilize and weigh in with Congress.
So I have a little bit of a, maybe there's a silver lining in this. When we were talking about this a little bit off the air before we started recording, that this NPCA organization, they have been an impediment to other recreational users, kayakers in Yellowstone, I'm sure mountain bikers and other recreational users, but now I'm sure that this organization that's putting this out here would be interested in help from the mountain biking community and help from the paddling community and whatnot. So maybe there's, an opportunity for people who are interested in recreation, not just the commerce of our kind of public lands. Maybe this is an opportunity for everybody to come together under one umbrella. And, organizations like this maybe wouldn't think that the paddling community is the boogeyman now, because they are coming to their defense to preserve these lands, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's on us. I mean, I think that the way to go forward is for us to, exhibit our power as a community and let those guys see that they need us, right? It's like, we can do that. We can be our own voice on these issues, right? Like, I think that it's important. Something we think about a lot is, the sportsmen's groups. Like, there are some really good hunting and angling advocacy groups that are really conservation oriented and that have, a very different voice than the traditional conservation groups, and have an ability to reach, more conservative lawmakers in a way that, like, the Sierra Club is never going to have. Mm. And I think that we try to, create a similar identity for our community, right? Like, when we do advocacy stuff, we think it's important that we're not just perceived as like another conservation group. Like, we're a socially distinct, historically distinct movement that's interested in protecting these places for their intrinsic value, but also for the value of the experiences that they provide for people. And so, for example, we don't do a lot of, like, a lot of the times there'll be these like huge sign-on letters with, 100 or 200 environmental groups that go to Congress. And like, we typically like don't sign on to those letters, even though we work really closely with a lot of those organizations, because we really want to preserve our own identity as the outdoor recreation community. Like, we care about conservation, but we're, slightly different. Like, this isn't just like hypothetical for us. Like, these are places that we go, that we care about, that we have a direct experience with and a direct interest in. And so I think kind of maintaining that identity is important, and, helps us be more effective advocates.
Well, I expect you to be on a flight soon, Lewis, and out there and start banging some heads, man. Get in there. OutdoorAlliance.org. Get on the newsletter. Stay up to date. Things are happening so fast. I saw a headline, drilling national parks. Read through the article. In the middle of the night, it gets propositioned. No one's going to stop it. It's going through, Head out of the ass. Do it. All right. Thank you for that, Lewis.
Thank you, John.
Moving on.
Yeah, thanks.
Well's over it. He wants to talk about dry suits.
You're like, well, we're screwed.
We don't need dry suits down here anymore, dude. We used to need dry suits, but that day is done, man. It's like 70 degrees again today.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's off the hook. The grass is good. I'm going to have to cut my grass next week. All right, now moving to our gear segment. Which we've never done.
Sorry,
but I always wanted to.
I'm totally sorry.
We've done the gear segment before. So, a gentleman out of Arkansas, Ray Jones, calls me one day and he's like, hey, I'd love to meet you. I got a product that I want to show you. Super nice guy, whatever. And I'm going to show you this. And just to show our viewers, I've got this in the little Skype viewer thing. So, and I'll put it on the YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, I'll put a picture of this up there so you can see it. You can put your own comments because I'm sure Lewis and John are going to have some comments too. So basically,
well, it looks like a latrine shovel you'd see like in a military.
Before you get into character, let me show you.
I was thinking it looks like.
I'm trying to paint a verbal picture.
And I was thinking it looks like one of those crutches that you get that you just like put your arm into instead of having to go all the way up into your armpit, stuck on the end of the paddle blade.
Or like you're like a superhero kayaker of some sort.
So you see how I'm holding this thing right here, okay? So you can't really see it, but what it is it's a normal kayak paddle blade, and he built this what would you call that, guys? The arm breaker. He built this thing with a handle so you can have like support, and it makes it more of an extension of your arm, if that makes any sense.
Right.
So, what do you guys think of this little invention here? I've never seen anything like it, so I figured it was worthy of bringing onto the Hammer Factor. Okay, Lewis first. We'll save you for the grand finale, Will. Lewis, you first.
We can continue our usual pattern of speculating about gear we haven't used.
Yeah, I like that. Right.
If I were going to hand paddle an open canoe, that looks like the item I would go for. It looks like I mean, I admire his commitment to experimentation.
This is like his third prototype. He put some time into this.
You seen anybody use it?
I have not seen anybody use it, but I am going to take it out and use it. I promised him I would, but I wanted before I did.
It seems like it would be too
right?
long.
That's right.
What'd you say? I missed that. What'd you say? Well,
you have two of them, right? You paddle.
Yeah.
You have two of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like Wolverine with paddles.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I'm like an X-Man. All right, John, what do you think?
I mean, my test is, thinking about how I like to paddle and trying to think if it would be an improvement. It would allow me to do more things that I currently am able to do or less than I'm currently able to do. And I'm not seeing it enabling me to do anything better than I already have with a regular paddle.
Well, my opinion is this would never work for whitewater because there's too much of a chance for it to break your forearm. So it's 100% out for whitewater. But imagine for like fishing or something like that, and you like make a cast and you just want to and then just do a little skull. I don't know. You never know. Anyway, check out the YouTube channel if you want to see.
Honestly, that's probably legitimate use. That's probably legitimate use for those I'm not considering. I'm thinking about running harder whitewater, and I'm not sure if that would be the best tool for that. I did have to use hand paddles for the first time in however many years. I used hand paddles for the first time a couple months ago because I broke a paddle and someone had a set, and they were great. I was really amazed. I mean, you could really actually run kind of hardish whitewater with them without that big of a deal.
You can make it. It's better than nothing.
They were legit. I thought they were legitimate replacement for a take apart. If it wasn't like to extreme circumstances.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like I did the booth at National, Tommy's Hole, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, but you're John Weld, whitewater legend.
No, but I'm saying, no, come on. All right, that's what I'd say about that. We're gonna talk about the Florida licensing thing, or are we gonna move on to our special guest?
Let's move on to our special guest. We're 21 minutes in, but I do think we can cover that next week because that's a big deal. That's actually a huge deal. That's
there's something. I just super quickly looked at that thing you sent, but it's user fees for paddling in Florida.
Yeah, basically, if you
user fees for small crafts, period.
Yeah, if you
there's something similar in the works in Oregon that's pretty alarming.
Yeah, if you want to put your boat in the water, if you want to put your stand-up paddleboard in the water, it's just like getting a fishing license or something. You got to pay your $25, get your number, get it registered, and
next week
we'll talk about that. We digress. All right, now our special celebrity guest for this week, Evan Garcia, hailing from Bozeman, Montana. Evan is a world-class whitewater athlete. I'm a big fan of Evan's. And let's see if we can patch Evan in here. Evan, are you there?
I'm here, dude. Yep.
Welcome to the Hammer Factor. You're on with John Weld, Lewis Geltman, and myself. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Just surviving out here in the ice box of the Columbia Gorge.
Yeah,
right.
It seems like it's pretty unprecedented. Have you ever seen it like this out there?
Definitely not. I'm usually gone for the winters anyways, but this has got me perplexed. I'm no Little White, and I'm living in the Columbia Gorge. What do I do?
You go skiing?
Climbing the walls, man.
Yeah, I've been paragliding my face off, but it's still out of season. I'm hiking up through icy terrain just to fly for 5 minutes back down to my car. But it's definitely good. It's keeping me in shape.
Where did the paragliding trend come from? I'm watching a lot of your stuff online, and Isaac, and it seems to be there's a whole posse out there paragliding. What was the impetus for that?
Man, I honestly think for me it was actually seeing Lane Jacobs starting to fly a long time ago, more 7 years ago. And I always wanted to do it, but I was so obsessed with kayaking, and I was I really wanted to fly. I wanted to base jump or paraglide or speed fly or anything. And then I started getting hurt in my kayak, so I had some more time on my hands. And and then Isaac and all the boys, Nick Murphy, were doing it out here, and I gotta go watch them a few times, and got the opportunity to work with a really good instructor, and it was just instant love, just kayaking in the sky. So super fired up on it.
Nice.
How much you have to spend to get into that? What's the outlay of cash right off the bat?
Well, it depends on how big you want to go. If you want to get
I want to go super cheap.
Okay.
The cheapest shit you could find.
Yeah, no, I could get into paragliding I bet you could do it for $1,000 to $2,000. The thing is you have to be. It's weird club. It's a club sport. It's not like kayaking. You have to have a certificate to fly, and to fly certain sites, you need to be certified. You need to be a P1 or a P2 or a P3. So, and it's just a totally different vibe than kayaking when it comes down to it, because you have to basically learn from somebody, and you have to have these certifications to fly. But I think there are people that don't do it, and they get into it for super cheap, and they don't have to pay for lessons. And I mean,
this is West Virginia.
Yeah, totally.
You just kind of fuck yourself off a hill. That's your business.
Well, I've been following your paddling for a long time. I've known you for a long time, Evan, but some of the viewers may not know much about you. Give us a little insight on where you're from, how you got into paddling, and kind of where it's taken you.
Okay, so long story. But my dad is a kayaker and has been a kayaker for a super long time. And I grew up in Bozeman, Montana. And he started to teach me to kayak when I was like probably about 8, 9 years old in the pool, you know, like everybody else. But I didn't like kayaking right away. It wasn't instant love. It kind of took me a long time to get over the fear of the river and stuff. So, and my older brother Ian, who was and still is an awesome kayaker, he lives down in Pucón, Chile. He took to kayaking way faster than I did, and I still think the only reason why I continued to paddle and continue to want to paddle was because he was a kayaker, and I just wanted to like do whatever my older brother was doing. But yeah, and then I kept kind of just like progressing super, super small amounts every year. I mean, Montana, the kayaking season is so damn short anyways, and our rivers are basically flat. But I didn't really get into it big time until I did a Grand Canyon trip with some older, like cool dudes, and they kind of showed me what was possible in playboats, and they were like surfing the top wave at Lava Falls, and I got more comfortable in my boat, and then that was I think 13 years old, and I was like, okay, I want to be a freaking professional kayaker. You know, that was in my head at that point what I wanted to do, and then I pretty much just dove straight into it. I quit everything. I stopped skiing. I stopped caring about like anything else, and I just went kayaking as much as possible. You know, I feel like that's kind of classic kayaker, like OCD.
Why not skiing though? I mean, you live in Bozeman, you know?
Yeah, well, I was freaking one of the really fortunate, like, whatever, couple hundred kids now that have gone through that world-class kayak academy program. And so I basically, from the age of about like 15, I was kayaking year-round till now. So it's a pretty long time to be kayaking spring, summer, fall, winter, and just always traveling, never really in winter. You know, I'd spend a few weeks on Christmas break in Bozeman and ski a little bit. But yeah, so it just like became this crazy obsession, and you know, it just allowed me to travel and do things that I wasn't super into as a kid. I wouldn't like paint myself to be a crazy like kayaker. When I was a kid, I wasn't very brave or wasn't very like into doing crazy things. So when I like became this kayaker, it was like this whole freaking crazy world that just like opened up to me, and I just freaking ran with it.
I mean, do you feel pressure now, being who you are, to run stuff you wouldn't otherwise run?
No, not. I mean, I have in the past, you know, run things that you know, I've questioned before for sure. And a lot of times it's turned out just fine. You know, I've been like above something and been super scared and kind of like feel that weird nerve and then come through it. And I'm like, yeah, that worked out, you know?
Like when's the last time that happened?
The last time that happened, I hurt myself. Like I was on the Royal Gorge last summer and I was paddling with Annie Ole, which is always just like super fucking on, you know? Like you're paddling with Annie Ole, it's like, you're going to go fast, you're probably not going to scout, and he's probably going to run everything. So I usually say that when I'm with him or Sven Lamler, I run like 10 to 20% more rapids than I would if I wasn't with them. So I kind of have to like mentally prepare myself for that. And half of that is just the vibe that you get with them, and the other half is like they will just go there where you don't want to test something out. Like you're like, I see it, but I'm not going to be the one that just like goes into that seam and like, hopefully I just like get spit off this like 50-footer, you know, and they do it. And then you're like, okay, that's the probe right there.
Well, hell no, I got to strap it on.
So yeah, but anyway, so back to that. Yeah, I was on the Royal Gorge and I was at Scotts Drop, Chuck Curran Falls, and yeah, huge freaking rapid, like ridiculous. And I knew I wanted to run it. I've always wanted to run it. I've had like a crazy fascination with that drop for a long time, and I have run it twice before this incident. The water was a bit low, so it made the top like 40-footer super awesome, and the bottom thing is just like this staircase of mank, you know.
It's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, Andy Ole ran it and just like had the most insane line. He just like freaking leaned over. His head was like buried in the water. He launches this crazy booth, comes down, and just like airs over everything. Freaking motorcycle, you know? And I was like, just was so stoked. But I knew it. I knew like running that rapid was a huge push, and like at the time, that wasn't like my goal of last year was not to like run everything gnarly. I just wanted to paddle a lot, and I wanted to have a good time doing it. But when you get caught up in those moments and you see something so epic like that, you know, at some point you're gonna just like throw caution to the side and give it. And that's kind of what I did. And it was working out so awesomely. I mean, just fantastic line through the first like 3/4 of the rapid. And at the bottom, I flipped over kind of on this like whole seam thing. And I caught my blade on this rock and basically like dislocated my shoulder as I caught my blade on it and like rolled off of it. And then I bounced off the bottom like 30 feet with no paddle and no right shoulder. And yeah, at the bottom, I was like freaking hurt and had to get helicoptered out of there. And it was definitely one of those moments that I could have avoided having taken like that safe route. But
so were you just kind of on the edge of feeling it that day, or what made you?
I was feeling it. You know, I'd been paddling super good. Like it was only 3 of us on the river on this trip, and we had just been like training through everything, like the whole Heath Springs Gorge. We just all dropped in, ran it all. You know, it's like boom, 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 boom. Got to Rattlesnake, ran Rattlesnake, camped, awesome. And I mean, I felt really good in my boat. You know, I'd been paddling super well all spring. Had been going big, but yeah, it could just like, I mean, I get it all the time when I'm above a rapid like that. You know, there's always that thought in the back of your mind that like, oh, like you could break bones, you could break your back, you could, you know, anything like that. And that rapid, you'd be crazy to look at it and think that that's not a possibility, you know? Yeah. So when you're running it, when you commit to running it, it's just like one of those things that you're putting yourself out there. And yeah. So I started paragliding because of that accident, because I didn't paddle for like 4 or 5 months.
Well, I've certainly been a fan for a long time, and you know, I followed your travels and the whole 9 yards, and you've been for a long period of time playing the sponsorship game and getting amongst it as much as possible. But here lately, you've stepped into a new venture. What is Waka?
Yeah, man. So Waka is a company that is owned by Sam Sutton and Kenny Mutton, 2 of the best, kind of like most badass paddlers from New Zealand. And they ended up buying a mold from Blistic a few years ago and starting their own company. It originally started out in the Czech Republic, and now it's in Milan, Italy. And they are basically just designing these boats kind of in their garage in Okiri Falls at the Kaituna River. And then, they started this little company, and they gave me this awesome opportunity to be a distributor for the boats here in the U.S. And it's been a cool business venture so far. I've learned a lot. I've definitely made a lot of mistakes, but it's cool. And it's also taught me and kind of showed me the the failed system when it comes down to like sponsorships in this sport. It's so hard, and it had been so hard for me for so long. And I feel like I'm speaking for everybody. It's like trying to be a sponsored professional kayaker is like, you know, trying to be like the best ping pong player in the world or something, you know?
Oh, there's way more money in ping pong, man.
Yeah. Totally.
Come on.
Would you say after selling boats and seeing the number of boats sold and the challenges of logistically getting the boats to the buyer and being a part of the business, that you understand a little bit more on that perspective of why it's hard to get certain sponsorships?
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing that I've realized as well is, at what point does having an athlete or a team sell you more products and make you more money? You know, in the end, I feel like, especially with this Waka thing, it's like,
that's a good one, man.
People know the product. People know what it does. It's like, if I give somebody a boat, are they going to sell, you know, however many boats more? Or it just doesn't really add up in the end, you know. And I'm speaking for small companies here, like big companies that have, you know, investors or money that comes from somewhere else. I don't know, but in the kayak industry.
I'm laughing right now, Evan, because I'm seeing the look of vindication on John Weld's face.
Hey,
Oh
Gelt, I want the dry suit back, by the way. Totally makes no sense.
I mean, no, there's place for that, and there is like,
absolutely,
there totally is, and there is a need for showcasing products and testing products and all of that, and there is, like the social media thing. I don't really understand where it's going to take kayaking and pretty much every extreme sport. I feel like it's selling a lot of what we do and a lot of what people do kind of short, with all the short videos and like shitty captions that are coming out, and like, I don't know. I'm not really digging it, and it's pretty much taken a lot of the art out of like photography and cinematography and making videos and people's attention span to watch them. So it's kind of just like everything's getting packed down into this weird little like social experiment on Instagram and Facebook. It's cool. It's like, I feel like there's more love being spread throughout the community and everything, but I mean, I can just see the kids coming up now who are awesome and deserve to be sponsored as much as I deserve to be sponsored, aren't getting it. I've tried a few times to get some awesome little kids freaking deals and sponsored, and the companies just don't need it anymore. They don't want to, open up and give people free products and money to paddle, because it's not, they don't need it.
This is
it gets hard to weed. It gets hard to weed through the noise, because you get 200 people a month sending you pictures that they've been taking. It's just so much noise going on. But I mean, I look at like Substantial. That's still you have a commitment to a longer format production there. I mean, you're going to continue to do that?
I mean, I'm stoked on it. It's hard. It's, once again, when the sponsorship has kind of bled out for me, I still work with all the companies I always have, and I have probably a better relationship with them because I'm not like hounding them for money or like, trying to get little checks cut for edits. And I mean, my passion is still making kayak videos. I was actually just the last 2 hours working on a video of Aniel and Sven up here in the Northwest last year, just like charging so ridiculously hard, and it freaking fires me up. It's like my favorite thing to do. But if there's not money in it, I don't, and there never really was. If we got paid per the hour that we worked, it would be insane. We were getting paid like 5 cents an hour, But yeah, I still want to do Substantial. I still want to make kayak videos, and I feel like there's a lot of people watching, and they just don't want to watch for like 20, 30 minutes like they used to.
Yeah.
What advice would you give?
Let's talk about.
Hang on just a second, John. What advice would you offer to someone who was in your position from 10 years ago? New landscape, they're trying to get a plane ticket from you and a free boat. What would you offer that person? What advice?
Yeah, I have a funny outlook on the whole thing, just because of where I've come from, and I never was very good at getting sponsors myself. I wasn't very good at self-promotion. I just kind of let my paddling and blog or videos do the talking for me. But I think big thing with that is being able to be like a people person, be able to speak well with others, interact well, and kind of influence them, and as well just do something that's going to get you noticed. Like, it's hard. You can't just expect to run 100-foot waterfall and have people pay for you to just shred the rest of your life. You need to do something that's like sustainable and, different. And it's hard to do that right now because you have people that are just paddling at such a high level, and just, there's always going to be somebody killing it harder than you, no matter freaking who you are, So it's whether or not it's hard. It's hard. I can't even answer that question, because you can go out and run the hardest, gnarliest thing, and the next day it's not going to be that gnarly. Or you can go and win every race, but in the end, it's like, it's just a kayak race, and next year probably everybody's gonna beat you. So it's hard. I don't know. I don't honestly know how to answer that question.
Go to nursing school.
Yeah, go to nursing school.
The best person we sponsor is Dave Fuseli. because he runs, he's obviously a great paddler, but he's just as happy to paddle Class 3 with people from around Ohiopyle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he does that for
he's
a
excited
lot
about it.
And
he's a man. He's a man of the people.
Yeah.
He's been that's a phenomenal.
Totally, and that's kind of like the dem shits in general. Like Jared Seiler was like that, and he was also one of the best, most amazing paddlers for a long time. And he was also just doing that Piranha Tour, and he made it his job. It wasn't just like this shred. I mean, we're not like snowboarders or skateboarders. We can't just like travel the world on an endless budget and just go and kayak every river. Like, it just doesn't make sense for this sport. I would love it to, and I would like, if I had the money and the company, and I would sponsor everybody if I could, but it just doesn't work like that.
We need another 10 million
Exactly.
US.
Exactly.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
So let's talk distribution for a second, because my 11-year-old Aiden, last winter we were in the parking lot at a grocery store, and it was snowing, and he saw a car with a tuna on the roof, and he got out in his t-shirt and stood there by the car until the guy came out of the grocery store to ask him where he got it. Right? So I was sitting in the car and I was watching him shiver, walking around the car looking at the boat. So
that's good business right there. We have
right. So you have a popular boat. What's the distribution model? How are you going to get them in here? Where are they going to go? How are you going to sell them? How can all the people out here out east who are dying to get a hold of one of these things get a hold of one?
Okay, this is my goal for like this whole year, because I was out at Moose Fest, I guess whenever that was in October, and man, I've never seen so many kayakers, so many creek boaters in my whole life, never, and none of them had Wakas. I was like, oh my god, that amount of kayakers doesn't even exist in like the state of Washington and Oregon, it's like,
oh, they're coming. Just
we're sending them that way by the carload, man. By the truckload, we're shipping them out there.
Totally. Lewis gonna have a fit over that, huh?
You guys are gonna be like the North Shore of Hawaii here. It's just gonna be a couple of hardcores and about 2,000 kooks out there.
We're like 90% of the way there.
We'll be
anyway
people as features in the river. Well, anyway, so I want to push towards the East Coast. I really want to make it more affordable for everybody to get these boats. And like I've said, I've talked with you a bunch about this. John is getting the boats over to IR in Confluence and getting them stationed there, and so you guys can ship them out and people can come in to town and pick them up and whatever. It'll just make it way cheaper and easier for everybody on the East Coast to get them. And I don't want people out there to think like, that it's a forgotten market. Like because I sell, most of the boats are selling in Oregon and Washington. Like I sell a ton of boats right here. And for me, it's kind of crazy because I didn't even know there was that many kayakers here. And I'm selling all these boats in Portland and Seattle and stuff. And I really, really want this business venture to work out. And I think I have so much faith in these boats. And I love the designs. They're so awesome, especially this new Gangster that's coming out, and I think people are just going to love it. So I want people to have faith in it, and we are doing warranties. There's so many like rumors that are going around that we don't have warranties and we don't do this. We do warranties, but it's a matter of it takes a long time to get the warranted boats here because we have to buy them container by container, and it's just not the normal thing. It's not, we don't have a factory here in the States like Jackson. We can't just like pump the boats out. So yeah, it's just, you're supporting kind of a different thing, and that's about it, I guess.
So, I mean, we talked with DJ about this when we had him on, but when he started his boat company, he made a decision to go with retailers, and from what it sounds like, you're taking a different direction, which is interesting because I don't know that there's been a boat company with this much hype about it that's taken this route. And that, and coupled with the fact that your dad, is, runs or owns one of the biggest retail outfits, in paddle sports, or I'm not sure where he's taking the company now, but at one point, that was his role. I mean, what do you think about all that?
I mean, I definitely was like almost there in 2016. I contacted a bunch of stores and I was going to sell to them, and I wanted, basically why I wanted to do it is I wanted to make my job easier. I wanted to just be able to sell 20 boats to this store in Colorado, 20 boats to NOC, 20 boats, just get rid of them and get them out of my hands quicker. But just looking, I mean, I'm a very amateur businessman and I don't really understand margins and that kind of stuff. And talking to a few people about it and kind of just looking at it, it didn't make sense. And it's kind of comes down to the amount of boats that we can actually get per year. Isn't that much. Like now they have a factory that can actually produce more boats, so I can do 2 or 3 containers a year. But before, it was taking 6+ months to get one container full of boats, so it wasn't even really an option. We were only able to bring in about 80 boats a year, but now it's kind of ramping up, and it could make sense in the future, but it just, for now, the operation is so small, and the margins are so small right now with the international shipping and everything, and it just wouldn't make sense for me to do all the work to then sell to a retailer to then have to sell it to somebody for more expensive than it already is. Right. That's my thought. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah. And it seems like your dad is supportive of. I mean, Evan and I have discussed this, and I mean, whitewater is a tough business, man. There is no question about it, because it's an expensive sport. It's difficult to make the equipment. The equipment goes under a lot of abuse. The customer's expectations are really high. There's a sentiment out there that we're the same size as snowboarding or something, that we have tons of money to work with, and like warranting a boat is no big deal, when it is or a dry suit or any piece of gear, a paddle is no big deal, but it is a big deal. I mean, things like that, for as small as we are, is tough, and you have to make a go of it. Man, you got to be shrewd. You have to be really tight. I mean, we've been doing this for 20 years, and we're one of the few. I mean, I said this before. I think we're one of the last independent paddle sports companies, period, out there. And if you look at whitewater boats, in the U.S. there's no independent boat companies, in the sense that that is not making fishing boats or sit on tops or SUP boards or garbage cans or what have you to pay the bills.
So do you think that moving forward for whitewater, the direct sales model is the future?
I think first of all, I'm really energized to see a standalone whitewater boat company. And it's the same way I felt with Liquid Logic when they came around, because their big push was to be a standalone whitewater boat company. And for whatever reason, we can have Woody or, Shane talk about this. They couldn't make a go of it, and they got bought by Legacy, and, they're part of a much larger company now. And I'm excited to see what Evan does. I don't know how Evan feels about running a serious whitewater business necessarily, because he has a whole other career going on as a kayaker, but I'd love to see it work. You know what I mean? I would love to see it work financially, and whatever it takes to make that happen I think is great for our sport, You're only going to get a great whitewater boat, in my opinion, from a company that's uniquely focused on whitewater. It's really hard to develop a innovative whitewater boat if your design team's spending, 90% of the year designing other kinds of products, or not even whitewater paddlers themselves,
Mm-hmm.
So
I know, Evan, in the past we've talked about some boat designs, worked on some boat designs, and we always talked about a boat that was the one, that was like the perfect creature to just go exploring and running whatever whitewater was in your way. I know in some of our dialogue before we recorded this show, you talked a little bit about this new boat possibly being that boat. What's up with it?
Well, it's pretty crazy, because talking about all this design and the company, Kenny Mutton, who's the designer for Waka, he actually didn't even prototype this boat. He never prototyped it before. He just sent it straight into production. And the first time, yeah, I know, it's like he just has a totally different, I don't know, he has a totally different vibe and a totally different way of doing things than I see. I never paddled for Dagger, but it seems like they always are doing these protos, and I see their paddlers getting these prototypes, and I always thought that was maybe the way to do it. But then when he just comes out with a boat like this, and I immediately sit in it, and I wasn't even sure about it, because the people at Sickline were like, oh, it's super fast. I mean, Anil won Sickline in it and had paddled it for like 3 days. You know, it wasn't his boat. He had just jumped in it and won this super hard race against all these crazy slalom dudes. And he doesn't even consider himself to be a racer. You know, he's definitely, in my opinion, the best kayaker in the world, but he has never before been, you know, a racing kayaker. But he just jumped in this boat and won this race. And it was kind of the same thing I did. I jumped in the boat in New Zealand and didn't know what to think about it, and immediately was like, holy crap, this thing is like so easy. It was so easy to paddle and was so easy to go super fast downstream. And by the end of that trip in New Zealand, I was kind of hopping back and forth between the Tuna and the Gangster, and it wasn't even a comparison how much more I liked this Gangster. And I was paddling so much better. I was so much more confident, and I ran kind of like this really big, scary rapid kind of my last day in New Zealand. And I don't think I would have run that rapid in the Tuna, which sounds weird. And it sounds like not maybe the right way to think about it, but I just felt so much better in the new boat and so much more solid that I was sold. I was just like, I'm going to use this boat and I'm going to run this rapid. And I did. I like paddled as good as I'd ever paddled in it. And it was just like this amazing thing. And that's really why I like to sell these boats. And that's why I originally started to do it, because I loved that original Tuna design so much that it was so easy to sell people on it. I was like, you know, it was just simple. Like, do you want this boat? It's like so freaking good. It'll blow your mind. And pretty much everybody who got a boat said the same thing. And
Lewis, you paddle Tuna, right?
I do, yeah.
What do you think of it? You're a connoisseur of whitewater designs.
Man, it's just so different than any boat that I paddled before. And I mean, not to say that it was super different than anything else out there, but I think I paddled the Remix forever and ever and ever. And I like that boat a lot, but I felt like I wanted something that was honestly like easier for really hard whitewater, but something that was still really dynamic and fun. And I kind of saw, you know, all these younger guys like Evan and Aniol and Gerd and like just everybody who is, you know, bringing such a new progressive style to things. And I kind of had this feeling like I want to get in on this. Like, I don't want to just be the guy, the old guy who's like paddling the same boat that he paddled back when he was like good. You know, I was like, I'm gonna get with the times.
So like a Corsica S.
So technically, Evan, like, you know, let's talk specifics. Is it rocker profile? Is it width? Is it volume distribution? What do you think is where's the magic happening?
I mean, for sure, in my opinion, the rocker in these new boats is helping. You know, I feel like all the best designs that are out right now are high on the rocker profile. I like the 9R, the Toro, the Tuna, the Gangster, the the Machno, Piranha's new boat. Everybody's liking that new rocker design because it's easy. Like Lewis said, you know, I paddled the Remix. I still think I've paddled more days in the Remix than any other boat ever, and I love it. But yeah, it was harder. You know, I could run all the same whitewater, but it was just I had to be way more on top of my game, and I would definitely take some more crashes in it. But just having that platform with a huge rockered out nose just makes you stay on top of things, and it just allows you to do some crazy stuff. And also crazy things happen to you. You know, like when you're in big water, you'll just jump off some wave and like land on another wave and just flip over. But it's kind of just a sacrifice you make. And I don't know. I honestly don't know what makes a boat that good. I've never been that person who just like obsesses over designs and chines and lengths and widths and volumes. I just sit in a boat, and if I like it, I like it, and if I don't, I don't. And I'm blessed because I sit here and I can like look at the little white canyon right there, and that river can just like teach me everything I need to know about a boat pretty much in one lap. You know, I sit in the boat, I know every little wave and every boof and every move. And when I sit in a boat and run the river, I just know how it performs immediately. And, you know, I do like other boats. I love the 9R. I love that Toro. They're super fun. They're super fast and awesome. I just feel like there's something about that new Gangster that just, I believe, outperforms them. And I believe that people are going to see that in the race season this year. And if they paddle it, they're going to feel it for sure.
What do you think,
To me, the thing about those boats is I think a big part of it is like, and I know this is going to be kind of a controversial thing to say, but I think that so many boats in the U.S. they're just prototyped in the Southeast. And it's like, I think that the kind of whitewater that we have on the West Coast is just, it's just conducive to a different kind of kayak. And I think having something, maybe the stuff that those guys are paddling all the time in New Zealand matches up better with, the kind of whitewater that we paddle in, in Washington and BC and California, but just kind of like those higher volume, steep runs. You just want a different kind of boat somehow. And like, to me, the thing that was so cool when I first got in the tuna was that it, like, I think traditionally you like look at whitewater features and you think about, like, oh, that's going to slow me down, or that's going to, I want to miss that thing because I'm going to like lose speed. And the tuna just seems totally opposite to me. Like you like look at features as how they're going to, like how you're going to use them to generate speed. It's like you come out of drops, you just come out so fast, and the way you can like bounce off of curls. It's like you almost don't even paddle the boat. You kind of just look for the feature that's going to accelerate you. And like maybe that's, part of it's the rocker, part of it's the chine, part of it's just that flatter hull, I guess. But it's, I don't know, it seems different to me than the way I paddled before in different boats. And I don't know, it feels kind of fresh.
Interesting.
The key design issue out here is the warranty policy, because we do like 600 feet per mile with like 80 CFS. That's our paddle style mostly.
I love
Evan, tell us
when you open up the East Coast, Evan, you get ready for that one.
Oh yeah,
guys paddling pretty at like several levels all year. Like, this boat sucks. It broke.
No, you don't even need. You should just put two. I was always thinking about that for the green. You could just cut a boat in half and then just put the boat in another hole. So you have two holes for the green, and then there's but you don't need that much performance. You're just going to be like, boom, boom. I talk shit, but I've definitely gotten, I've had so many good days on the green, and I've definitely gotten my ass kicked on the green. So I've had some rush tourist experience with that on the
green. Well,
you didn't dye your hair though.
Evan,
not yet.
Give us the rundown on this South America trip you got coming up.
Yeah, enough about the boats. Let's talk about some kayaking. What's up?
I'm heading to Chile in exactly 2 weeks from today, and I won this grant from Canoe and Kayak, and this Next In Tire company, $10,000 to go and do like this dream trip. And it was funny because I just typed this dream trip. I saw it and it was like ending tomorrow, so I typed up this dream trip in like 45 minutes and just sent the email. And it's kind of like a popularity contest, which is, I don't like that about Facebook and social media contests to win things, because it just becomes a popularity contest and it never really ends up working. But it worked for me this time because I have a good social media following and a lot of people shared it. A lot of people voted for it. And I ended up winning $10,000 to go and do this trip. And we're going to Patagonia to run the Rio Baker, I should say, the Rio Bravo and the Rio Pascua from not their like definitive sources, but the source of the river to the ocean. And got a really good crew to go and do it, kind of some media dudes and badass kayakers. And we're all going to go down there for 6 weeks and shoot this really cool project about Patagonia and dams and what's going on the Rio Maipo, this huge project. They're damming the number one fresh source of water for the city of Santiago. So we're going to go try to just freaking go down there and have a good time and make a little bit of a difference while doing it.
Where is the Rio Maipo?
The Rio Maipo goes into the Santiago Valley from the south side. Comes off these massive, they're all the mountains that drain, that the Maipo drains are 20,000 feet to 18,000 feet. They're insane mountains, pretty much right by Aconcagua, which is the biggest mountain in all of the Americas. But it's just this amazing river system. It has these beautiful tributaries, all Class 5 whitewater. The Rio Maipo itself is I don't even know how to explain. It's like Upper Gauley, but more continuous for 50 miles or something like that. It's unbelievable.
With good wine.
Yeah, with great wine. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I paddled that when we were down there.
totally. It's an unbelievable place. And what they're doing right now is they're drilling a hole through one of these massive mountains, and they're going to dewater the whole Rio Maipo and put it into some other drainage to make power that's not even, they're not even making that much power. They're trying to power some mines up north, some gold mines or something. And that's kind of that's the biggest thing going on in Chile right now. There's been some kind of breakthroughs down south to stop some dams on the Puelo and the Baker and the Fuda. But right now, the project, we're going to kind of focus on the importance of free flowing rivers and kind of have the Maipo be the example.
Killer. Sounds killer. Well, there may not be a United States of America when you come back, so enjoy your trip down there.
I know, man. Old Donnie, dude, he's making it rough. I don't know what I'm going to do. The import, we're going to have to start making wakas here in the States. If we don't, we're not going to be able to.
Well, let's move on. We're getting close to our time limit here. I'd love to, if you got a second to stick around, Evan, take part in our Rants and Raves segment. This is where we rant on something that annoys us or rave on something that we're into. And I'll just throw it around. Well, do you got any rants and raves?
I do. I have a rant.
Let's hear it.
I came prepared this time. We got to get some ladies on the show. All right, because this is like a sausage fest for one thing. It looks like the Trump administration in here. A bunch of white guys.
All right.
Hey, and Kara would gladly take my place one of these episodes because she listens to these, and as soon as she listens to them, she says, "You guys are a bunch of idiots."
She's a smart lady.
Yeah.
So we need more women. That's what you're saying. We always need more women.
That's right.
All right, that's on the list, Lewis.
I got nothing.
Nothing. Evan?
When is the sun going to shine in the northwest and melt this damn snow that I'm looking at? Last year was like it was 4 feet. We were sessioning like the greatest. We had the greatest session ever, and this year, I've gone kayaking like 3 times since New Year's. So
it looks.
We still seem to be making the most of it, man. He's like skiing every day or something. Why don't you guys just go skiing?
I know I should go skiing, but I'm that stubborn and that stupid, I guess, that I just am like waiting for something that may not happen.
Someday. It's got to melt someday.
Someday. I'm just waiting for Chile, man. I'm going to go down there and get beat down in some huge, beautiful blue holes and probably swim and get all glory.
Well, let's see. I'm gonna rant on Outside Magazine.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on Outside.
Yes, dude. Thank you.
All right. So, anyway, this was brought to our attention through somebody out there, whatever. Anyway, the headline. I mean, just Outside Magazine just puts this supposedly a supporter of adventure sports, whatever. And it basically says, why are adventure sports so boring to watch? Now, I'm not going to get into the whole article. There's some good points in the article and whatever. But at what point did Outside Magazine become bubblegums and lollipops? Does anybody know?
Outside Magazine it's like the most consumerist magazine on earth. It just like I remember the day that I was like, I cannot even look at this anymore. And it was an article. It was called Fly Fishing Essentials. And according to Outside Magazine, the essential item that you need to have to go fishing is a $1,500 fly rod.
Right.
I mean, it exists to sell like plaid shirts and Subarus to yuppies using our lifestyle.
It's Men's Health.
So bad. Right. You got to read this article. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it just basically dogged everybody who's trying to put on a sporting event, from enduro mountain bike races to downhill skiing to everything. So anyway, whatever. Outside Magazine sucks.
To me, the biggest thing about that is who cares? It's like the whole point of this stuff is that you do it. It's not for something for somebody to have their hand in a bag of chips and watch on their television on Sunday. It's like something to go do. It's like, it's like questions like that. It's like it matters for somebody like, Outside Magazine who wants to commodify our lifestyle. But if you're actually out living it, it's like, I don't care if you think what I'm doing is boring to watch or not.
Yeah, well said. Anyway, that's my rant, Outside Magazine. And Evan, thanks for coming on the show. I'll make sure that my sponsorship proposal is into you ASAP with my address and everything. So.
Too. I have an awesome YouTube edit I'm going to send you.
Pro deals, guys. Pro deals.
All right, and that concludes it.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Thanks, Evan.
Later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, later.
Peace.